Hello everyone. On today's episode, I'm gonna talk about how science can be used, to corrupt and to get you what you want if you have a lot of money or influence. Is that the reigning thought in today's society is that science is usually infallible. And this podcast is gonna talk about something I talked about like two podcasts ago and also the last podcast episode. And is that, most people believe, when it's most governments, the moment scientists gets involved, they tend to listen to them, and it's so easy to use this to manipulate the system. There's been so many examples throughout the years of my life that I've seen science being used to trick people into buying certain products or buying certain things, or investing in certain things. It is so easy to manipulate people using science. Just like it is, with celebrities. When you want some people to buy your product, you pay celebrities to promote it, because people will always, people love celebrities and tend to like to mimic their behavior, their fashion sense. If you see your favorite celebrity wearing certain outfits, you want to wear it as well. If you see your favorite celebrity investing in something, you want to invest in it as well. If you see your favorite celebrity doing something, you want to do it as well. It's only natural for you to, want to be like the person you respect or worship. And that's true as well in the science community. As long as you have enough money, or you have enough influence or the right connections, you can trick people who love science, who believe that science is infallible. You can trick them into buying any product that you want as well. Just like you can do it with, celebrities, you can do it with scientists as well. The science field is filled with people, it's filled with people who rarely ever question their favorites, scientists, man. They rarely ever question science. Yes, they tell you that, peer review this, peer review that, we've gone through rigorous testings and blah, blah, blah. The truth is, most there's a group of scientists that actually do the testings. There's a group of scientists that, go through the rigorous tests. And then there's the rest of us, the rest of humanity, the government, the senators, the politicians, the public spokespeople, the friends and family of these politicians, the friends and family of these senators, the friends and family of these generals, as well as the generals and all that. They just rather accept what the scientists have told them. They don't want to do all the hard work themselves. They don't have the tools to do all the hard work themselves. That's why they need the scientists to begin with. The scientists do the hard work so we don't have to. The scientists make all the discoveries and do all the rigorous testing and do all the peer reviews so we don't have to. And because of that, because most people know that they're not cut out for it. They're not cut out for all this rigorous testing. They're not cut out for all this peer review stuff, man. This isn't for them. It's way too much effort, man. It's way too much effort. It's way too much money being spent. They're not gonna spend money, just to come to the same conclusion that a scientist came to. There's way too much effort involved, and they're not gonna do it. The government is just not gonna do it. At most, they'll pay someone else to do a review for them, but at that point in time, it's already too late. So what I'm trying to get at is, if you can buy enough scientists, if you have enough influence, and you have a good group of scientists that can listen to, that can obey your orders and do what you want them to do, you can have them orchestrate any study you want. Make the study vague, make the results of the study vague, or make the results of the study hard to get to, create a study that is very, very, very hard for other scientists to replicate, and then use that study to for your own business ideas. Use that study to promote your business. It happens all the time, man. That is something I've seen throughout my life. Is So many studies have come out that have ended up being disproved, later on in the future. But the problem with this is that by the time it's been disproved, it's already too late. People have already made their money. The millions have already turned to billionaires overnight. That's one of the cool things. Like, right now there's studies about AI. I gotta tell you the truth, man. AI isn't as useful as you think it is. Yes, it's almost just as useful as Google, Google search, a Google search browser, it's a Google search engine. That's pretty much just as that's how useful most AI is for me. There's really not that much use to AI, but yet here you are. Here's everybody talking about. There's so many studies about AI this, AI that. When the truth is, I don't really believe in AI as much. I used to. I used to believe in AI, but as time went on, last year, I used to believe in the hype that AI was actually that great. But as last year to this year, looking at all the things that AI brought, I've tried all the AI, coded things, vibe coding. I think that's what it's called. AI vibe coding. This AI vibe coding is trash, man. That thing has no use whatsoever. Do you know why? Because you can't edit the AI. You can't edit the code without, you can't use AI to edit something that is created without the AI messing it up again. It's like, using the AI to recreate an image. I've used an AI to recreate an image. Once in a while, you see that every time it recreates the image, as part of the image is removed. You want it to fix the face. If you tell it to fix only the face, guess what? The AI will recreate the whole image all over again. Instead of just fixing the face and letting every other part be perfect, be exactly the same way it's supposed to be, the AI will only, instead of just fixing the face, it will fix everything. So not only will it fix the face, it will also change parts of the body because the AI recreates the whole image every time you tell it to, generate an image. Because of that, it's hard for you to actually get a perfect picture every time you tell the AI to change something. Because every time the AI changes something, it changes everything else. Because it regenerates the whole image. It doesn't only just regenerate the face and keep the rest of the image exactly the way it was before. And that's the problem with, AI vibe coding. Maybe it'll change in the future, but I don't really think AI is going to be as great as we think it is. I really believe it's. I actually don't want to use the word bubble because we really can't tell what's a bubble, what's not a bubble. People can gaslight you into thinking anything is a bubble, man. It depends on perspective. Whether something is a bubble or not, it really depends on perspective. You can turn something into a bubble simply by tricking people into thinking it's gonna fall. You know, if you can trick the world into thinking gold is gonna fall, people will sell gold in droves. As long as you're good at manipulating the masses, man, you can turn anything into a bubble. You can gaslight people into dropping any, selling any product you want them to due to, fear. If you make them fear enough, they will sell any product, turn it into a bubble that bursts. You can burst any bubble in this world. So in the end, everything is a bubble at some point in time. As long as you have enough power, you have the means, you have the scientists that'll create endless fake studies, to trick people. You need reputable scientists for it. You can't just use any random scientist to create fake studies. What I've realized, you got to use reputable scientists, scientists that already have great reputation. Use those scientists to create studies, fake studies, and you can bankrupt any business or any sector. Trick people into thinking this sector is garbage, and the whole thing falls apart. As long as you can trick the world into thinking a sector, an economic sector is garbage or it's a bubble, you can have them, you know, sell the product in mass droves, and trick them into not buying the product. You can do that you can do that. And then when they sell the product, you know, you buy it when they sell it, and then when everybody is sold and the whole product is, completely worthless, you do the equal opposite. Tell everybody how great the product is, it's not a bubble anymore and blah blah blah. And people start buying it again, you make your money from that. So there's many ways to manipulate people, and it's been done countless times, over the years. Tricking people into thinking something is bubble is one of the ways to make to make money. Trick people into thinking it's a bubble. If you have enough money and influence, you can trick anyone to thinking anything is a bubble. For example, gold. Trick people into thinking gold is a bubble. They won't want to hold gold for long enough, and then they'll start selling the gold. They sell it in droves, and the price of gold go down to like cents, and then you buy all the gold, and you buy all the gold, and then tell them how great gold is again. It's no longer a bubble, and everything goes back to normal. You have billions of dollars worth of gold, if not trillions of dollars worth of gold, because everybody believes you that it's a bubble, and because they believe it's a bubble, they sold gold in droves and drove the whole price down. So that's what happens. That's why I don't want to say AI is a bubble, because I don't want to gaslight you into thinking AI is actually as bad as I think it is. AI could really be the future. I see the uses in it, but I just don't think it's something that I can really go my I don't really believe it's as useful as we think it is. But there's always that's what I want us to talk about. Is that there's always people out there right now. We're creating endless studies how great AI is, how much how much money you can make using AI, how great this is the future, this is that. You have to wonder, are these people regular people, or are these people who are invested in the AI products to begin with, people who own AI products, big businesses who own AI products, AI companies will definitely tell you how great AI is. But is it really as great as you think? Do not be left holding the bag of someone who's trying to make money from AI. Some people have invested in AI, years ago, and right now that the price of AI products are going up, they're the one driving it up by constantly telling you how great AI is, and then you end up realizing AI is just the same as the whole .com bubble all over again. It's just someone tricking you into thinking AI is more valuable than it actually is, and by the time you find out, everyone finds out it's not as great as you think it is, it's already too late. You've already bought these AI products, you've already bought these AI things that in with a high premium. The prices of these things are so high, the prices of the stocks at this point will be so high. You're buying them now, and then you end up realizing that only a few of these products actually has value. Only a few of these AI products actually has value. Just like only a few of the AI, the .com internet, sites actually have value. You know how many websites have gone down throughout the years? How many useless sites exist? It just follows the whole mindset of the whole statistic that proves that 90% of all businesses fail. Yeah, there's a statistic that shows that I think like 90% of all businesses fail within 10 years. That means 90%. If that statistic is true, which this is not my statistic. This is a government statistic that shows that 90% of businesses fail within 10 years, and I think it's like 80% in 5 years, and 90% in 10 years. That means 90% of the AI businesses that you see around here, 90% of all these AI companies telling you how great AI is, 90% of them would fail within 10 years. Do you know that, right? That means all these companies that you're buying, if you're someone buying, investing in AI stocks right now, 90% of them will be garbage within 10 years. Only the remaining 10% will be gold, meaning only 10% of these AI companies will actually be here in the future. These 10% would decide how AI works in the future. So I'm not saying AI will disappear. I'm just saying that you just have to be careful if you want to invest in AI in any way, shape, or form. Is that 90% of the products you're investing in, 90% of the companies that own those products will go bankrupt within 10 years. So 10 years from now, you just have to be careful. You just have to be careful you're holding the 10% that actually has value, and that's how this whole thing works. It's so easy to use scientists to create the illusion that something is great. It's so easy to use scientists to manipulate people, because people believe in science so much. People believe in scientists so much that You just have to buy a few scientists. And you may think it's hard, but if you have a lot of money, do you know how many renowned scientists are living paycheck to paycheck? Just because you're a scientist does not automatically mean you're good with money. You may have to pay. You may already have had a divorce. Some of them have already had a divorce and can barely make ends meet because they have to pay their child support and alimony on a daily basis. Some of these people, are so bad with money, all they do is gamble their money away. Some of these people are drug addicts, just waste their money, just spending on stupid things. Some of these people just spend their money buying houses that they can't afford. They buy $1 million houses, and now they have to pay, taxes that they can't afford to pay. $1 million houses means $1 million tax, taxes of $1 million. Some of these houses, man, some of these renowned scientists, they use their paycheck to buy an extremely expensive house or an extremely expensive car, and then they have to pay, insurance, a large amount of insurance, to insure that house and that car. By the time, all the finances are, calculated, they barely have enough to, feed themselves on a daily basis. So these are the renowned scientists we're talking about. These are the ones that make like millions of dollars, every year, every few years. Yeah, because of the gambling habits, because of spousal disputes, children, you know, family members getting sick and things like that. Because life happens to them, they may be living on on a deficit. They may have to be taking loans right now, and these people are so easily bought and paid for. As long as you give them enough money, these guys will just so that they don't have to starve to death. They're making millions, but they spend it, they spend the millions they make buying extremely expensive items, paying for extremely expensive things, and now they're in debt and they still have to live in on minimum wage. Behind the scenes, in front of everyone they look rich and influential, but behind the scenes they spend so much of their money carelessly. They spend so much of their money carelessly. Now they're broke. They're still making millions of dollars a year, but the moment they get fired, they'll be homeless. The moment they get fired, they'll no longer be able to pay the taxes for the year. The moment they get fired, they'll no longer be paying the loans that they've taken, the student loans that they've taken. They won't be able to pay it. End up being homeless. So this is what you have to deal with. With these renowned scientists, is that you may not have to work hard to get these guys on your payroll. You may not have to do much. You may not have to even pay them that much just for them to be happy. They get to make $50,000 more than they made before. That's enough for some people, man. If you give them $1 million, that's even more. And you can have them create any studies you want. You can have them. These scientists are actually better at manipulating the system than you are, because they know how these studies work. They know how to trick people into thinking, into accepting the study as true, even though it's false. These scientists are the inside man that can help any business, gain the approval of the government. The government loves taking these guys seriously. If any study comes and proves X or Y, the government takes them very seriously. And also, if you do that, you're also playing with fire, because the government take these studies seriously. And because the government take these studies seriously, you get yourself in major trouble. If the government end up finding out the study was actually a manipulation tactic, a scam, you get yourself in trouble. But if the government just thinks that you may have just made a mistake, you're not the study was that's why you have to make the study like an independent study where it doesn't look like it's related to you in any way, shape, or form on paper. But the truth is, only your company benefits from it. Or even if other companies benefit from it, your company is the one that sponsored the study behind the scenes. So you can make more money from it, because you're the first, you're the mover. The moment that study comes out, you're the one that uses that study the most. Before other competitors start using the study, you've already spent years using that study to make a lot of money. And the government loves these studies, man. Just as long as you have a good enough study, these guys can give you grants, they can give you awards, and so that's what you have to watch. You have to watch out for as a government, is that they're as a government and as companies, that As a government, you have to watch out for these fake studies where companies are always out there using scientists, broke scientists, renowned scientists that have no money. They appear to have money, publicly, but the truth is they've spent it gambling, they spend it, carelessly, and they're broke, they're broke on paper, but publicly it looks like they have a lot of money. But you can't really tell because you don't know what they spend the money on. You can't tell who's truly rich or not in this world. Some people make millions of dollars a year, but they're so in debt. The moment they no longer get paid, they go broke. They'll become homeless overnight. Yeah, these are the people making millions of dollars every year. So you really have to be careful. You really can't tell who's actually rich, who's actually poor. You may think the ones making millions of dollars a year are rich, but when they have millions of dollars a year worth of bills to pay, they're not going to be that rich, anymore, are they? That's a problem. From rich folks look rich from the outside, but because of all the bills they have to pay, the millions of dollars of debt that they have, it just counterbalances the money they make. The income and the debt ratio is just too high. Sometimes it's the opposite. They have so much debt that even when they're making millions of dollars a year, they still can't pay for it. They still can't balance out their debts. These ones are the ones that file for bankruptcy. These are the ones that go homeless overnight. You see these celebrities out there. One moment the celebrity is making millions of dollars, next thing you know, he's filing for bankruptcy. He's filing for this. He's trying to he's begging for money. He's begging for this. He's begging for that. It just keeps you wondering. Weren't you making millions? Wasn't your net worth like 100 million before? How come you just went broke right now? How come you start selling you started selling your homes, you started selling your cars and all that? I thought you were a millionaire. Yeah, because they're a millionaire on paper, but the truth is they have so much debt hidden behind the scenes that you don't know of, that they're practically homeless, that they're practically broke. They're broken than someone making $50,000 a year. They can't even afford the food they eat. They can't even afford to buy food at the store some days because they have to spend so much money on the debts. They have to pay so much bills that they've accumulated buying all these expensive things. If you want to buy expensive things, man, there's an endless list of expensive things in this world to buy. And that's the trap of wealth, is that you can easily get yourself into a situation where no matter how much money you make, you can just never make enough. You'll always be broke no matter how much money you make. And there's a lot of scientists out there that will always be broke no matter how much money they make, ready to be manipulated by big businesses, man. Ready to be manipulated by that small business that finds that niche that it can use scientists to help resolve. Some of these small businesses become billion dollar businesses just from studies alone. If you can falsify a study good enough in a niche that the government really requires, you can create a fake problem that your company solves, that the government really wants your company to solve. The government can pump money into your business just to solve it. And that's one of the traps of life, is that you really can't tell what a legitimate company is, and the government can't tell what studies are actually the real studies and what studies are actually the fake ones. It only takes time, years of the government going out of their way. The government have to go out of their way, to do their own study to prove or disprove your study, and that takes time and it takes money. Some governments will never do it. They'll just accept that, yes, you guys, the scientists have spoken. They just get, they just listen to the scientists. They're never wrong. We're not going to waste money trying to disprove the studies of a scientist. That's way too much effort, man. We don't have the time of day. We don't have the money to be giving these scientists, to be creating our own, to be giving our own science, our own scientific, our own scientists, money. We don't have the money to be giving our own scientists to be studying, to be reviewing your study. So if you say the earth is flat, man. That's all that matters. As long as there's enough scientists, as long as your company has enough scientists to prove that the earth is flat, that's what some governments care about, man. They don't really care whether it's true or not. It doesn't matter to them. They're not going to spend their money creating a whole independent body of scientists to review your study to make sure you're not lying to them. They'll just give you the grant money to do whatever you need to do. If your company comes up with a solution to the study, to the problem that the study created, the study creates a problem, your company comes up with a solution. If your company comes up with a solution, the government can just give you grants just for that alone. Not even just the government. There's so many the grant companies out there. There's so many kind people out there. There's so many charities out there. They'll just give you grant just to do nothing, just to solve a problem that you created yourself. And that's the biggest trap for the government itself, is that they can't really be sure which study is actually real or which one is fake. It takes time. Some of these studies require a long time before you end up realizing it was actually a fake study to begin with. Some of these studies require tests, years of tests, years of rigorous tests before you can actually realize whether it's actually a real study or not. And by that time, it's already too late. The company's already made millions, have already made billions. The small indie company has turned into $1 billion company. Now they have lobbyists. Now they have enough money to pay for lobbyists to protect them from the law. So by the time they find out, by the time the government find out they've been lied to, it's already too late. These businesses have already grown too large. They've made too much money from this, and now they have a bunch of people in Congress. They have a bunch of people, protecting them from this, from behind the scenes. And that's what we have to worry about, in life, is that in every field, there's always con artists, and they're always normal, righteous, normal folks who are just trying to do the best they can. And that goes for science, the scientific field as well. It goes for cryptocurrencies as well. With the study that shows that 90% of all businesses fail, cryptocurrencies are businesses as well. You know that, right? That means 90% of all these cryptocurrencies fail, which is the truth. From what I've read, from my experience in life, most of the cryptocurrencies I've been investing in cryptocurrencies since like the early days of Bitcoin. I was here before all these new cryptocurrencies started, before even Ethereum came to be. So I have to tell you that 90% of all these coins have disappeared from the face of the earth, man. Meaning most of these coins that you see today will disappear from the face of the earth. You don't know how the sheer volume of coins that are being created, man. You can say Bitcoin is a volume, I should tell you can say cryptocurrency is a volume, is a bubble. You can say cryptocurrency is a bubble, and I should believe you. But at the same time, it doesn't mean it's a bubble that that can't reinflate itself every time it pops. The bubble popped back in 2014, right? Was it in 2014 or 2018? I think it was 2018. The bubble popped in 2018 and is back up again. So it's just every sector, every business sector always has its ups and downs. There are times when gold will be up, and there are times when it'll be down. There'll be times when Bitcoin will be up, and there'll be times when it'll be down. There'll be time when the .com bubble will be up. There'll be time when it'll be down. Everything always has its ups and downs. There are periods when everyone wants to invest in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and then there'll be periods when nobody wants to invest in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies anymore. There'll be periods of times where people want to invest in bonds and stocks. There'll be times where people just want to run away from bonds and stocks. The whole stock market goes up and down, every few years. There are years when it goes up, and there'll be years when it goes down. So everything is a bubble, and everything is not a bubble at the same time. There are times when the value is too high. I mean, the price of something is too high for its value, and those periods of time is when you really sell. You try to sell before the whole thing comes crashing down, and then after the thing comes crashing down, you buy right before it goes back up again. That's pretty much just how businesses work. You buy high, you buy low, and you sell high, and that's pretty much just how stocks work. You buy when the company's the price of the business or sector is low, and then you sell when it's high. Just like this whole AI bubble thing. Right now, it's going up. People value AI way too much for its value. People value AI way too much for what it actually brings to the table. And at some point in time, this bubble will pop, and people realize it doesn't really give you as much as you think it does. By that time, it's already too late. The people that have bought all these AI stocks, 90% of these AI stocks will fail within 10 years, anyways. So 90% of the people buying these AI, most of the people buying the AI stock will buy, won't be buying the 10% that will last, for years, for the rest of their lives, like AT&T or Verizon. They'll be buying the stocks that'll fail in 10 years. So at some point in time, you just have to accept that whether AI, the whole AI field is a bubble or not, 90% of the businesses there will fail. Meaning you just have to be careful what you invest your money in. Because within 10 years, the business you're buying, the business you're investing in right now, may not be there anymore within 10 years. Within 10 years. So you have to really be careful what business you're actually investing in, because regardless of what business you're investing in, whether it's, a business in the cryptocurrency field, or a business, in the stock market, or gold, or, any of these businesses, in 10 years, 90% of them will fail. You know, that's business that started today. All the businesses that started today, within 10 years, 90% of them will fail. So you have to really be careful what you invest in. And you also have to be careful, as a government, what scientific studies you actually want to believe in. Because some of these things and some of these scientists are actually pretty good at tricking people. They're very good at tricking the government. They're very good at, manipulating statistics to make their businesses, to make the businesses that control them behind the scenes more rich, more wealthy. And if you're a business that wants to go down that line, you really have to be careful. I'm not telling you to go down that line, but you really have to be careful, because you're going to be pissing a lot of people off. If people end up finding out your business was a manipulative business that created a fake study just to get rich years later after you become rich, that this is a scam. It's a crime. You can get in a lot of trouble for it. There've been many people that have gotten in a lot of trouble for scamming the government out of money. You can serve decades in prison for it. So you have to really be careful in life. As the government itself, as businesses, and as people, do not just take any study as real, because you can't tell what's going on behind the scenes. Some of these scientists are truly desperate enough to create a fake study to prove anything, because they need the money that badly. They need the grants money that badly. They need the businesses behind them, the support from those businesses, the monetary support from those businesses. They actually need it very badly, and they'll do anything for it. But that's it for this episode. My voice is getting hoarse now. I'm talking too much these days. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.